Cameron, capital city of Dreystone. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Gabriel Dramore had asked himself that same question more times than he could count. 3 full days without sleep. Even with his high-grade implants and biological enhancements, he was pushing the limits of what a human body, augmented or not, could endure. He wasn't used to this. Back in his old life, he never had to stay awake longer than a standard day cycle. Food wasn't even the immediate problem. His accelerated metabolism let him stretch that out. But even that had its limits. Water was easy to come by, but proper meals? That was a different story entirely. He'd been relying on whatever commoner-grade rations he could scavenge, and calling them food was generous. Bland, stale, and with textures that seemed intentionally offensive to the senses. Chewy, stringy, borderline inedible. At one point, he actually felt personally attacked by whatever he was eating. Still, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was knowing he had no plan. Not anymore. Peterson had helped him escape the palace, sure. But beyond that? Nothing but vague contingency ideas and rapidly closing doors. He'd swapped out his nobleware for something much more discreet. Scratchy, ill-fitting clothes meant to blend in. Brown, worn pants. A plain gray shirt with the logo of a rock split in 2 by a hammer. Thick black jacket, hood up. Cheap sunglasses to obscure his eyes. Functional. Forgettable. The kind of outfit no one would look at twice. His once pristine shoes were replaced with synth leather boots already showing wear. A far cry from the quality he'd known, but necessary. He'd even abandoned his hover bike, one of his favorites. The thought of using it as leverage or trade had crossed his mind, but ultimately, he decided it was too risky. Anything that could be tracked, even remotely, was a liability. His father, Duke Cornelius Dara, would be informed of his escape within hours, if not minutes. And Gabriel had no illusions about how far his father's reach extended. He had to vanish. Fast. Exactly 1 hour after his escape, Dreystone was put into lockdown. Emergency broadcasts flooded every frequency. His grandmother, Dina Hansenik, had ordered the closure of all spaceport departures and suspended incoming cargo for intensive inspection. The justification? Alleged Arabian agents had been spotted on cam. It was a convenient excuse. "What am I supposed to do now?" he muttered aloud. "You can start by ordering something this time," came a bored, feminine voice from nearby. Gabriel blinked, turning his head. A small, brown-haired woman, plain clothes, datapad in hand, earpiece in one ear, stood next to his table. Waitress. Right. He was in a bar. "Water. And something to eat," he replied. She raised an eyebrow, giving him a smirk. "You've hit rock bottom, haven't you?" "More or less." She gave a dry chuckle. "Seen plenty like you. I'll get you a grilled Tony steak and steamed potatoes. That'll put some life back in you. Don't go dying on my floor." With that, she tapped a few notes into her datapad and wandered off. Gabriel finally looked around the place. Bar might have been generous. It was a mismatched jumble of low-end furniture, faded walls, and peeling decor. A few cleaning drones zipped around, ignored by the patrons. A couple made out in the back. Some teens were laughing, already a few drinks too deep. One guy silently ate something that looked radioactive. And in a corner booth, 4 rugged folks chatted quietly over their meals. Commoners, he thought. Not with disdain, just resignation. Maybe a hint of envy, too. Here they were, enjoying their pathetic little lives while the entire principality was on the edge of civil war. Either they didn't care, or they were too stupid to realize what was happening around them. A throb pulsed in his head again. Another warning from his body. Time was running out. He had to leave Cam. But how? All ports were on lockdown. Biometric scanners, security checkpoints. It would be suicide to try a direct approach. Could he bluff? Could he intimidate his way out? Number. Even if someone did believe he was who he said he was, Gabriel Dramore, son of Duke Cornelius, they might turn him in just for the reward. Hell, he'd do the same if the situation were reversed. He needed a better plan. Something that wouldn't get him killed or captured. First, Gabriel ran a hand through his now gritty hair and let out a breath. The weight on his chest hadn't lifted. If anything, it had gotten heavier. My best efforts are pathetic, he thought bitterly. He slumped deeper into his seat, a quiet chuckle escaping his lips, dry and empty. His thoughts spiraled as the low rumble of bar chatter filled the space around him. Distant voices, clinking glasses, music that sounded like it was losing a battle with static. "Gotta say, pal," the waitress from earlier said, reappearing beside him with a tray. "I've seen crematories with more cheerful vibes than you." She slid a plate in front of him, a reddish cut of grilled Tony steak and a pile of steaming potatoes, along with a tall glass of water. Her name tag, barely clinging to her shirt, read Nancy. Gabriel didn't look up. "I don't have time for your commentary. I've got more important things to worry about." "Wow, that bad, huh?" she said with a chuckle, ignoring the frosty tone. She pulled out the chair across from him and sat down without waiting for permission. "Hey, Sanso, taking my 15, she called toward the bar. A man behind the counter, presumably Sanso, yelled back without looking up. "Don't pester the customers, Nancy." Nancy flipped him off without missing a beat. "So, mystery man, what's eating you alive?" She nodded toward the food. "Go on, eat something. You'll think clearer with a full belly." Gabriel blinked. This woman had absolutely no filter, no formalities, no manners. Just brutal, casual honesty. It was jarring. And strangely, a little comforting. He stared for a moment longer, then let out a breath and picked up the fork. The steak wasn't terrible, surprisingly. Not great, but edible. The potatoes were bland but hot, which made up for a lot. "I'd rather eat alone if you don't mind," he said, trying once more to push her away. "Yeah, see? That's the thing," Nancy laughed. "Just calling it how I see it. Look, it's dead out there. Thanks to those damn Arabians, no ships in or out for a while. Traffic's frozen. So you and I are stuck with each other. And you need to vent. Trust me. Helps more than you'd think." Gabriel almost snapped again. But then, her words hit a nerve. He wasn't stupid. He knew he was predictable, methodical, rigid. A man of paperwork, rules, and systems. His entire life had been built around bureaucracy and administrative structure. If there was a form to fill or a law to follow, he'd mastered it. But that wasn't helping him now. He was playing by rules in a game where the rules no longer mattered. If I keep acting the way I always do, I'll be caught. I'll fail. And everything I've done will be meaningless. Gabriel leaned back, looked Nancy in the eye, and said, "I was exiled. I've got nothing left. No name, no allies. Just a few credits, the clothes on my back, and a desperate need to leave Cameron before it swallows me whole." Nancy nodded, her expression softening just a little. "The blockade can't last forever," she said. Some ships are already prepping to leave Dreystone space again. Might be your chance to start over, yeah? You're remarkably optimistic for someone living in a place like this, Gabriel said, almost smiling. Someone has to be, Nancy replied with a shrug. So, what are you good at? I mean, you look enhanced. You got strength? Combat implants? Gabriel shook his head. Administrative work, logistics, organizational strategy. Nancy snorted. Well, we've got exosuits and drones doing most of the heavy lifting. But a brain? That might actually be useful. She paused, glanced at a nearby table. You serious about getting out of here? As long as it gets me off cam and away from Dramore territory, I'll take anything. You might be in luck, she said, standing. She turned to the table in the corner. The name on his forged credentials read Victor Hawk. Gabriel Dramore lay flat on the top bunk of a cramped crew cabin aboard the merchant freighter Never Late, staring at the ceiling. The stale, recycled air had a faint metallic taste, and the thin mattress creaked under his weight. But none of that mattered. He had made it. Raune, true to his word, had pulled strings, greased palms, and handed Gabriel a disguise as solid as it was temporary. The paperwork passed inspection. The biometric scans were basic enough to fake, and the bribes were effective. Even under tight security, they'd gotten through. He wasn't out of danger. Not yet. But he was no longer in Dreystone. That alone felt like a miracle. Just don't be Gabriel Dramore, he had told himself. Not to the guards, not to the scanners, not to the universe. His sideburns were gone. His signature blonde hair had been dyed a dull brown. His vibrant green eyes were hidden behind cheap, dark lenses. The name, the posture, even the way he spoke. Every trace of nobility had been scrubbed clean. Victor Hawk was no one. And for the first time in days, Gabriel allowed himself to breathe. He closed his eyes, the hum of the freighter's engines lulling him into a half-sleep. His body was still sore, every limb aching from days on the run. But for now, he was safe. Or at least safer. He owed Peterson everything. Without the man's sacrifice, and the few brave others who'd risked everything to get him out, he'd still be rotting in the palace. Or worse. He clenched his jaw, a cold fire rising in his chest. I swear, he promised silently, your deaths won't be in vain. But first, he needed to rest. He needed to recover, get stronger, get smarter. Then he could strike back. Darkness claimed him quickly.